Welcome to the final lesson for Section 10 of the BJCP trading program from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club. We are wrapping up the section on wort production with Lesson 6, chilling and fining. Let's start with chilling. Once the boil is done, the wort should be chilled to yeast pitching temperatures as quickly as possible. This can be done with an immersion chiller, which is a coil of copper or stainless steel tubing that sits in the wort while cold water is being run through the tubing. You can also use a counterflow chiller. This is a coil of tubing that has a second coil of copper or stainless steel inside it, and the wort is being pushed through that inner coil in one direction, while cold water is being run through that outer tubing in the opposite direction. This next device isn't mentioned in the study guide, but you can also use a plate chiller. This works conceptually the same way as a counterflow chiller, where the beer flows through one direction and cold water in the opposite direction. But instead of tubing, this device is made of a series of thin stainless steel plates. Chilling the wort as quickly as possible helps minimize the risk of contamination by lactobacillus or other bacteria that may lead to off aromas and flavors. Now let's talk a little bit about cold break, because chilling the wort produces cold break. The cold break consists of protein-protein and protein polyphenol complexes. Adding Irish moss or whirlflock near the end of the boil helps promote the coagulation of these complexes and form a heavier cold break. Now, on to fining. So let's quickly discuss what we mean by fining. By fining, we basically mean clearing. We're adding something to the beer at some point to help increase the clarity of our beer. One form of finings are kettle finings. These are finings that we add to the tail end of the boil, usually within the last 10 to 5 minutes of the boil. Common types of kettle finings are Irish moss. Irish moss is a red seaweed grown in the rocky Atlantic coastlines of Europe and North America. There's also whirlflock tablets. These are also derived from seaweed, but also have an additional purified carrageenan added. Carrageenan is the polysaccharide in seaweed that helps with the fining process. There are also post-fermentation finings that are added after the beer is fermented. They're added either to the fermenter before packaging or to the keg the beer is being transferred to. Some post-fermentation finings include silica hydrogels. The exam guide doesn't describe what these are, but just in case it does come up in the exam, I'll share that silica hydrogels are hydrated silicon dioxides that absorb particles into finished beer and then settle to the bottom of the vessel from their now increased weight. There's also gelatin, and unflavored gelatin, of course. This is a collagen-based agent derived from animal hooves. If you're trying to make a vegan-friendly brew, don't use gelatin, or our next example, isinglass. Isinglass is also a collagen-based agent derived from fish bladders. There's also a polyclar. Polyclar is powdered plastic material with positively charged molecules that attach to the negatively charged protein polyphenols in the beer and settle to the bottom of the vessel. And then lastly, if you don't want to put any additional products in your beer, vegan-friendly or otherwise, you can always let time do the work. Given enough time, nearly any beer will eventually clear, but of course, there are always exceptions. So that's it for this lesson and for this section of the program. Now that we know how to make wort, it's time to talk about the key ingredient that actually makes beer, and that's yeast. And that's what Section 11 is all about. I'll see you there.